The stars glittered over the silent darkness of space, in the far reaches of the Milky Way, where the silver light of a dying sun touched the cold surface of a distant planet. The Vorkai people watched disaster approach. The Vorkai were not newcomers to the galaxy. Their civilization had stood for thousands of years, building great crystal cities that floated above the clouds of their world. Vorka Prime. They were proud, tall beings, their skin shimmering with faint bioluminescent patterns. To many other species, they seemed almost perfect, logical, wise, and ancient. But on this day, even they were afraid. A cosmic radiation storm was forming near their star system. It was unlike anything recorded before. The storm's energy waves could melt metal, destroy shielding, and burn through genetic material. The scientists of the Vorkai worked endlessly, calculating probabilities and running endless tests. Yet no matter what they tried, one truth remained. The storm would reach their planet's orbit within 23 days, and it would strike the nursery, grounds, the sacred chambers where millions of Vorkai young rested in protective pods beneath the surface. Every attempt to move them failed. The radiation field extended too wide, and transport ships would not survive long enough to carry the young to safety. The Vorkai Council gathered in their shining hall of stars, their glowing eyes reflecting the screens that showed the approaching danger. Elder Koresh, the wisest of them, spoke slowly. "We cannot protect them with our current technology," he said. "Our shield harmonics cannot match the frequency of the storm. The young will not survive." The room fell silent. Losing the young meant losing the future of their species. No one dared to speak, until one voice from the science division whispered something almost unthinkable. "There is one other species we might ask for help." The others turned sharply. "You mean the humans?" The word humans brought a strange tension to the room. The Vorkai knew of Earth's people, newcomers to galactic society with only a few decades of interstellar experience. They were shorter, physically weaker, and often described by other races as unpredictable and emotional. Yet there was something about them that made even the most logical minds hesitate to underestimate them. "They have strange technology," said one counselor. "Their energy systems are unstable and primitive." "Perhaps," said another, "but their systems are also powerful. They bend their machines to their will in ways we do not." Elder Koresh closed his eyes. "They are chaotic," he murmured. "But chaos sometimes protects what logic cannot." After a long silence, the decision was made. A transmission was sent to Earth, simple and direct. "We are the Vorkai of the Korra system. Our young are in danger. We need guardians." 2 days later, far across the stars, the message reached Earth's orbital station. Commander Mira Lorne, leader of the United Terran Response Fleet, was reviewing reports when her assistant handed her the decoded transmission. She read the short message twice. "Guardians?" she muttered, confused. "They want us to protect their children?" The request was strange, but there was no hesitation in her heart. Humanity had faced many things since entering the galactic stage: trade wars, exploration hazards, and even distrust from older species. Yet whenever someone asked for help, humans answered. That was their nature. Within hours, Earth's Council of Nations approved the mission. Ships were prepared. Scientific vessels, cargo transports, and defense cruisers, all coming together under the name Operation Starshield. Thousands volunteered, not for glory or wealth, but because the mission's purpose was simple: save children. The fleet launched 3 days later. From orbit, hundreds of glowing thrusters lit the sky as Earth watched her guardians leave. Captain Mira stood on the bridge of the USS Dauntless, the lead ship, her hands resting on the console. "Set course for Korra system," she ordered softly. "Let's show them what humans do best." The journey took 9 days through hyperspace. When the fleet arrived, they were greeted by the glowing orbits of the Vorkai's twin moons and the faint blue hue of the planet below. At first contact, the Vorkai delegation appeared cautious. Their ships were long and elegant, shaped like blades of light. When they saw the bulky, armored design of human vessels, some of them murmured with uncertainty. Elder Koresh, standing aboard the docking platform, greeted the human commander with a polite nod. "You came," he said, surprise still in his tone. Mira smiled. "You asked for guardians. That's what we are." On the planet's surface, the humans began their work immediately. They studied the nursery grounds. vast underground chambers filled with crystal pods that glowed faintly with the pulse of young Vorkai life. Each pod contained a growing child, resting in protective energy fluid. Human scientists examined the area carefully. Dr. Ethan Cole, an energetic engineer, adjusted his visor and spoke with excitement. "The radiation frequency is high but not impossible," he said. "If we tune our plasma shield harmonics just right, we can block it." The Vorkai scientist stared at him. "That level of radiation will melt your machines in seconds," one warned. Ethan just smiled. "Then we'll rebuild them in 1 second." The humans worked with speed that startled their alien hosts. They built energy towers powered by fusion cores, connecting them with thick shield conduits. They set up drones to monitor every fluctuation. And when the radiation waves began to rise, they activated their new field. A soft blue dome shimmered across the nursery grounds, spreading light like a gentle sunrise. Elder Koresh watched silently as readings appeared on the screen. The deadly waves of cosmic radiation struck the field and vanished. The shield held. The Vorkai engineer stood speechless. "How is this possible?" one asked. "Your reactors should have overloaded." Dr. Cole laughed. "They did, twice. We fixed them." Mira stood beside them, watching her crew move with quiet determination. She had seen humanity's flaws, its greed, its arguments, its chaos. But in moments like this, she saw what made them different. When others saw hopelessness, humans built hope. The storm grew stronger each hour, painting the sky with eerie violet colors. Radiation readings reached dangerous levels, but the human shield held steady. The alien children inside the pods remained safe. Many Vorkai stood at a distance, watching the humans in silence. They saw sweat on human faces, burned gloves, and tired eyes, but none of them stopped working. They rotated in shifts, some sleeping only minutes before returning to their stations. One night, Elder Koresh approached Mira as she sat near a control terminal, her uniform dusty and her eyes red from exhaustion. "Commander," he said softly, "you could have stayed in orbit. You could have left machines to do this. Why stay here?" Mira looked up at the sky, where lightning from the storm danced in purple arcs. "Because machines don't care," she said quietly. "But we do. That's why you called us." Koresh's glowing eyes dimmed thoughtfully. For the first time, the wise elder felt something new toward these strange humans, respect and perhaps admiration. By the 9th day, the storm reached its peak. The entire planet shook as waves of energy rolled through the atmosphere. The shields flickered, alarms blaring through every chamber. Engineers scrambled to stabilize the reactors. One reactor core overheated, and before anyone could stop it, Lieutenant Ramos rushed inside the maintenance tunnel, rerouting the coolant manually. When the system stabilized, the shields returned to full strength. The storm continued for 6 more hours, but the nursery grounds remained protected. When it finally ended, the skies cleared to reveal a calm silver dawn. The blue shield slowly faded, and the silence that followed was filled only by the soft hum of machines and the sound of breathing. Dr. Cole checked the readings and smiled broadly. "All stable," he announced. Not a single pod damaged. A deep collective sound rose from the Vorkai, something between a sigh and a song. For the first time in many generations, the proud species bowed before another. Elder Koresh turned toward the humans and said with emotion in his voice, "You have saved our children." "We cannot repay this," Mira shook her head. "You don't need to. Just remember, when life is in danger, humans don't walk away." That day, the Vorkai saw something no science could explain. They had long believed that logic and perfection were the highest virtues. But the humans taught them a lesson written not in numbers but in hearts. Sometimes, the greatest strength is not found in weapons or shields, but in the simple decision to care. And so began the legend of the Guardians of the Young, whispered across the galaxy. When all hope is gone, call for the humans. The storm had passed, but its memory lingered like the echo of thunder. The blue protective domes shimmered faintly under GalacticPrime's pale sunlight, and the air smelled of fresh ozone. The humans had done what the Vorkai once believed impossible. They had saved the young. Yet their mission was far from over. After the storm, the planet needed rebuilding. The energy waves had damaged weather systems, communication networks, and atmospheric stabilizers. But more than the world, it was the Vorkai hearts that needed to heal. Their people, once proud and distant, now felt something unfamiliar, gratitude mixed with awe. Captain Mira Lorne and her crew remained on Vorka Prime for several weeks. They built new energy grids and replaced damaged infrastructure with human-designed technology. To the Vorkai's surprise, the humans shared their blueprints freely, refusing any payment. One morning, Elder Koresh stood atop the observatory tower and watched as human engineers worked below. Their small figures moved quickly, carrying heavy equipment, fixing solar towers, and checking shield nodes. They laughed often, even when tired. To the Elder, their laughter sounded strange but warm. He turned to Mira, who was standing beside him, her uniform covered with dust. "You humans," Koresh said quietly, "you face danger with humor. Even when you should be afraid," Mira smiled. "We learned that a long time ago. Fear never stops the storm. It only slows the hands that can stop it." Koresh nodded slowly. "Perhaps that is your species' secret strength." The nursery grounds were now a place of constant activity. Human scientists continued to monitor the growth of the young Vorkai larvae. Inside the glowing pods, tiny life forms drifted peacefully, their light pulsing like stars. Dr. Ethan Cole became one of the most loved figures in the nursery. He had a habit of speaking to the pods as if they were children. "Hey there, little one," he would say cheerfully. "You're going to grow big and strong soon, aren't you?" The Vorkai caretakers found his behavior unusual at first, but over time they noticed something extraordinary. The young larvae responded to human voices. When humans entered the chamber and spoke, the pods would brighten faintly, the bioluminescent light inside pulsing in rhythm with the sound. "It's as if they recognize you," said Elder Koresh one day as he watched Ethan work. Ethan shrugged and smiled. Maybe they just like good company. But Mira, standing behind them, felt something deeper. Perhaps it wasn't just recognition, it was connection. Days turned to weeks. Slowly, the humans and Vorkai began to understand each other better. The humans taught them how to build more flexible shielding, and in return, the Vorkai shared their medical knowledge and star mapping techniques. During evenings, when the sky turned purple and the twin moons rose, humans and Vorkai would gather together. They shared stories. Humans spoke of Earth's oceans, rain, and music, while the Vorkai spoke of crystal mountains and glowing seas. Though their languages were different, their laughter carried the same sound. One night, Mira was invited to speak before the Vorkai Council. The Great Hall of Stars was filled with shimmering light as the elders waited in silence. Mira stood before them wearing her blue commander's uniform, the Earth emblem shining on her shoulder. "We came here to protect your children," she began. "But in doing so, we found something greater. We learned that life, any life, is worth standing for. Your young are not ours by blood, but we see them as our responsibility now. That is what being human means." The hall remained silent for a moment. Then Elder Koresh spoke, his tone filled with respect. "Commander Lorne, your words reach beyond stars. You speak not as a visitor, but as a guardian." However, the peace was fragile. Unknown to the humans and Vorkai, their success had drawn unwanted attention. Beyond the Cora system, hidden in the shadows of an asteroid belt, a group of ships watched silently. They belonged to the Draven, an aggressive species known for piracy and scavenging advanced technology. Their leader, Warlord Tarek, leaned forward as he watched the recordings captured by his probes. "Humans," he muttered. "Small, weak creatures protecting the Vorkai's future. They build new power grids and shield generators. If we take them, we control both their technology and the Vorkai's loyalty." The Draven fleet began to move. Back on Vorka Prime, Mira had begun to feel uneasy. Her instincts told her something was wrong. She stood on the observation deck of the USS Dauntless, staring at the faint static patterns on the radar display. Lieutenant Ramos approached her. "Captain, our outer sensors are picking up faint energy readings, possibly ships." "How many?" "Unknown. They're hiding behind the second moon's debris field." Mira frowned. "Keep scanning. If they move closer, I want the fleet on alert." The humans had not come for war, but they knew the universe rarely allowed peace to last. Meanwhile, on the surface, life went on. The human engineers worked tirelessly, unaware of the danger creeping closer. Ethan was inside the nursery chamber, checking shield calibrations with 2 Vorkai scientists. Suddenly, the ground trembled slightly. The instruments flickered. "Did you feel that?" Ethan asked, looking up. Before anyone could answer, an alert echoed through every speaker. "Incoming vessels detected. All personnel seek cover." Outside, dark shapes appeared in the upper atmosphere, Dravon raiders, their ships black and spiked like iron beasts. They descended fast, weapons glowing red. The humans reacted immediately. Mira's voice rang across the comms. All ground teams, activate defense protocols. Evacuate civilians and secure the nursery. Vorkai warriors, untrained for war in centuries, panicked at first. Their ships were fast but built for travel, not battle. Yet the humans moved with calm precision. Defense drones launched into the sky, intercepting plasma bolts. Energy turrets, powered by human generators, came alive with blinding blue light. From the orbit above, the Dauntless fired its rail cannons, striking one Dravon ship and sending it spiraling into the clouds. Down below, Ethan and a group of soldiers stood outside the nursery entrance. "We can't let them breach this door," he shouted. Plasma fire flashed around them as alien soldiers landed from drop pods. The humans, smaller and fewer in number, took defensive positions. They used portable shields and precise aim to hold the line. Each time the Dravens advanced, they were pushed back. Elder Koresh, watching from the control chamber, felt a mix of fear and amazement. "They fight like lightning," he whispered. "They are so fragile, yet they do not yield." Inside her command ship, Mira gave one final order. "No one touches those children. Not while we still breathe." Her voice carried through every human communicator, steady and fierce. The battle lasted hours. The sky burned with light as human and Dravon ships clashed above the clouds. On the ground, the air shook with explosions. But the humans never abandoned their posts. When a section of the nursery shield began to fail, 2 engineers ran into the radiation zone without hesitation to repair it. Their suits cracked, alarms screamed, but they finished the work before collapsing from exhaustion. By nightfall, the Draven ships began to retreat. One after another, their engines flared and vanished into hyperspace. The humans stood among the ruins, tired, bruised, but victorious. Mira looked around at her team. "Report," she said softly. Ramos smiled weakly. "All pods secure, Captain. Every child is safe." Mira closed her eyes in relief. "Then we did our job." The following morning, as the sun rose over the silver horizon, the Vorkai came out of hiding. They walked through the battle-scarred fields, past the human defenses and into the nursery grounds. There they saw the humans still standing guard, watching over the glowing pods. Elder Koresh approached Mira and bowed deeply, his voice trembling. "You did not just protect our children. You protected our hope," Mira smiled faintly. "That's what Guardians do." Around them, the human soldiers began to pack their equipment, but many of them knelt beside the pods for one last look. The young inside glowed softly in response, as if recognizing their protectors. It was a moment no one would forget, the sight of alien young shining in the light of dawn, while tired, humble humans stood quietly beside them, and far above, in the quiet of orbit, the message of their bravery began to spread through galactic channels. Worlds that once doubted humanity now whispered their names with respect. The Vorkai had found their guardians, and the galaxy had found something greater, a reason to trust humanity. After the Draven attack, the planet of GalacticPrime was quiet again, but its air carried a new energy. The humans had not only saved the Vorkai young, they had proven themselves in the way the proud alien species had never seen before. For Elder Koresh and the other elders, the time had come to see if trust could grow beyond survival. Inside the vast nursery grounds, human caretakers walked carefully between the glowing pods. Each pod held a young Vorkai, its body pulsing with light that reflected its mood and health. The aliens watched silently at first, still wary of these small, fragile beings who had faced cosmic storms and deadly raiders without faltering. Dr. Ethan Cole bent over one of the pods, adjusting the energy harmonics. "There you go, little one," he whispered. "Nice and stable. You're going to be okay." He placed a hand gently on the surface of the pod. To him, it didn't matter that this was not human life. The pulse of energy inside felt like a heartbeat, fragile yet determined. One of the Vorkai scientists, Lorena, tilted her head. "They respond to your voice," she observed, "even when no one else is near." Ethan smiled. "Life knows who protects it. It doesn't care what species you are." Mira Lorne, walking down the long corridor, overheard them and nodded. It had been days since the battle, but humans were still watching over the young, checking every monitor, walking the corridors and speaking softly to the pods. The dedication went beyond duty. It was instinctive. Outside, the humans and Vorkai worked together to rebuild parts of the planet's damaged infrastructure. The young Vorkai, though still fragile, began to sense safety. They responded to the humans' presence in ways no one expected. When a human entered the nursery, a pod's light would brighten. When a human spoke, another pod's glow pulsed rhythmically. Elder Koresh observed silently from above, perched on a balcony overlooking the chamber. "It seems," he said to Mira, "that your people do not simply protect. You communicate without words." Mira tilted her head thoughtfully. "We protect because we feel. Feeling allows us to connect even without speaking. That's why we fight, why we care." The elder's luminescent skin dimmed slightly as he considered her words. In all his centuries, he had never seen a species bond with another so completely without sharing a single common language. The bond deepened over the following days. Captain Lorne allowed her crew to spend more time inside the nursery, speaking to the young and observing their growth. It became clear that some of the larvae could recognize individual humans. When Lieutenant Ramos approached a pod for maintenance, the light inside brightened with a distinct rhythm, almost like a pulse of recognition. One day, Mira asked Ethan, "Do you think they remember us?" Ethan paused, watching a pod glow more strongly than usual. "I think they do. Maybe not like we remember, but they feel us. They trust us." It was a revelation for the Vorkai as well. They had always believed that only their own kind could care for their young. Now, they began to understand that trust could cross species, and that protection could be given without expectation of reward. Evenings became moments of quiet learning. Humans would sit with Vorkai children in containment pods, reading, singing softly, or describing Earth's skies and oceans. Slowly, the young responded not just to presence but to emotion. A pod might shimmer brighter when spoken to kindly, or dim when a human's voice grew tense. For the Vorkai, this was astonishing. "They adapt to empathy," Lorena whispered to Elder Koresh. "They mirror what they sense from those who care." The elder's eyes glowed faintly. "Perhaps humans are not merely strong," he said thoughtfully. "Perhaps they are wise in a way we cannot measure. Strength of the heart, not of the body or mind." Outside, the humans also trained the Vorkai in emergency protocols. The storm had shown them the limits of their technology. With human guidance, the aliens learned to quickly stabilize shield harmonics, repair energy conduits, and monitor environmental readings more efficiently. But Mira emphasized something deeper. "It's not just the machines that protect," she told Elder Koresh during one meeting. "It's the people. It's care. Machines alone cannot save life. Only we can." The words were simple, but they resonated across the hall. Even the most logical scientists nodded in agreement. As the days passed, the bond between humans and the young Vorkai became undeniable. When a new pod arrived, still fragile and barely pulsing, it responded immediately to the humans. It seemed to recognize them instantly, as though it had been waiting for them. Ethan knelt beside it, speaking softly. "Hello there. Don't worry, we're here." The pod's glow intensified, and Elder Koresh, observing, finally spoke aloud. "I have seen many wonders in my life, but this is extraordinary. Your people, humans, are capable of empathy so deep it crosses the boundaries of species." Mira's gaze softened. "We protect because we care. Caring is stronger than fear. Stronger than logic. Stronger than the storms you face." Koresh nodded slowly, a faint smile illuminating his features. But the universe rarely allowed peace to last long. Scouts reported faint energy traces near the outer moons, traces similar to the Dravon ships that had attacked weeks earlier. The humans detected it first, their sensors far more sensitive than the Vorkais. Mira gathered her crew and said quietly, "Stay calm. Observe first, act second. We cannot risk the young." When the Draven scouts appeared, attempting to test the nursery's defenses, the humans responded with precision. Drones flew into the sky. Plasma turrets glowed bright blue, and even unarmed personnel organized defensive lines. The Draven retreated quickly, realizing the humans were ready for them again. The Vorkai observed silently. They could not believe the humans' courage. Each human, though smaller and physically weaker than their attackers, stood firmly in defense of the young. Elder Koresh finally whispered, "Perhaps this is why we were right to trust them." In the quiet moments, humans and young Vorkai would interact in playful ways. A pod might glow brighter if a human gently tapped it. and sometimes it seemed the larvae would try to imitate human gestures. Mira watched as Lieutenant Ramos crouched beside a pod, extending his hand. The pod's light pulsed in sync with his movements. It was a silent game of trust and recognition. For the first time, the Vorkai saw that these humans were not only guardians, they were companions, teachers, and friends. Elder Koresh observed from the balcony. "They bond without demanding," he said to Lorena. "They protect without fear. This is why humans are unlike any other species we have known." Lorena nodded, a rare expression of wonder on her face. They care as much for the young as if they were their own. One night, Mira stood alone in the nursery chamber. She watched the soft, pulsing glow of hundreds of pods. Her heart swelled with a mixture of pride and quiet reverence. She whispered almost to herself, "We may be strangers, but we are their family tonight." The glow of one pod pulsed brighter in response, as though it understood. And in that moment, Mira realized that the bond formed between humans and Vorkai young was something extraordinary. A connection that went beyond survival, beyond biology, beyond words. It was a bond built on trust, courage, and the simple truth that every life deserved protection. Elder Koresh approached her quietly, bowing slightly. "Commander Lorne," he said softly, "I see now why the galaxy whispers of humans. You are not just strong, you are necessary. You have shown that life can be protected by more than shields and weapons. You have taught us the power of the heart." Mira smiled faintly, her eyes reflecting the soft light of the pods. "Perhaps," she said quietly, "that is the most important lesson of all." And so, under the twin moons of Vorka Prime, a new chapter began. Humans were no longer just visitors. They were teachers, guardians, and friends. They had proven their courage in battle, their wisdom in guidance, and their empathy in quiet moments. The Vorkai began to see the future differently, not just as a species surviving in the galaxy, but as a species that had learned to trust and to love across the boundaries of biology. The young Vorkai pulsed softly, responding to the human's presence, a living testament to the power of connection. And as Captain Mira Lorne looked around the chamber, she knew that what they had built here, this bond, was more important than any victory or shield. It was the reason the universe would come to trust humans with its most precious lives. The calm that had settled over Vorka Prime was deceptive. For weeks, humans and Vorkai alike had worked to restore their planet after the cosmic storm, and the nursery grounds thrummed with soft, pulsing life. The young Vorkai had grown stronger, their bioluminescent bodies flickering in rhythm with the humans' voices. Every pod shone brightly, a testament to careful guardianship, courage, and the quiet determination of the human crew. Captain Mira Lorne stood atop a hill overlooking the central nursery complex, the twin moons casting long silver shadows. She scanned the horizon, her instincts uneasy. The Draven, the aggressive raider species that had attacked weeks earlier, were known to wait and strike when their prey was least prepared. And humans had learned over centuries of survival that instinct was often more reliable than sensors. Lieutenant Ramos approached, his expression grim. "Captain, long-range scans are picking up unusual energy signatures near the outer moons. They're moving fast." Mira narrowed her eyes. "Show me." On the display, dozens of black shapes shimmered through the faint light of the asteroid belt. Dravon ships, smaller than the humans' war cruisers but fast and deadly, were approaching the planet. "They found us," Mira said softly. "Alert the crew. All hands stations now. We're not letting anyone touch the young." Inside the nursery grounds, humans moved quickly, securing pods, reinforcing shield conduits, and checking emergency systems. The young Vorkai pulsed in response, as if aware of the impending danger. Human caretakers spoke softly to them, offering reassurance in their own language. Ethan Cole bent over a pod, brushing his hand along the surface. "Don't worry," he whispered. "We've got you. No one's going to hurt you." The Vorkai scientists looked on in astonishment. "They understand," one said quietly. "Even in the face of danger, they comfort the young." Elder Koresh stood beside Captain Lorne. "Your people, they do not fear." Even now they remain calm. Mira's jaw tightened. "It's not lack of fear, Elder. It's knowing that fear won't save anyone. Action does." Above the planet, the Draven fleet emerged from the asteroid belt like a swarm of black shadows. Their ships bristled with weapons, and energy pulses glowed along their hulls. Sensors on the USS Dauntless registered hundreds of plasma weapons charging simultaneously. Targeting the nursery, Lieutenant Ramos reported, his fingers flying over the console. Mira's voice rang out across the fleet's comms. All vessels engage defensive formation. Keep the raiders away from the ground. Ground teams maintain shields around the nursery. Do not let them breach it. Repeat, do not let them breach it. The humans moved with precision despite the chaos. Drones launched into the sky, intercepting incoming plasma bolts while human pilots maneuvered their ships in daring patterns to shield the planet. The Vorkai had never witnessed such organized defense. Small, seemingly fragile beings holding a line against overwhelming numbers. On the ground, the tension was no less severe. Human soldiers and engineers worked in tandem to protect the nursery's shields. Portable energy barriers flashed into place, deflecting Dravon plasma that struck the surface. Explosions rattled the complex, but every human remained focused. "Get that conduit stabilized," shouted Ethan as a plasma surge threatened the shield core. He ran toward the sparking machinery, ignoring the heat and radiation that shimmered around him. Lieutenant Ramos followed him, carrying heavy tools. "I've got your back," he shouted, ducking as a small energy bolt struck nearby. Together they repaired the conduit in record time. The shield stabilized and the pods inside continued to glow steadily. Elder Koresh observed quietly, his eyes wide. "They are not merely protecting," he said.
"They are..."
"Unyielding. Their courage is unlike anything we know." Mira nodded silently. "That's what humans do. We stand between danger and those who cannot defend themselves." The Dravon realized quickly that the humans were not to be underestimated. They launched boarding pods aimed at the surface, hoping to capture the young Vorkai. But the humans anticipated it. Drones intercepted the pods mid-flight, exploding them in bursts of blue plasma. On the ground, soldiers formed a defensive line. Human shields flared as Dravon boarding raiders attempted to land, only to be repelled with well-coordinated strikes. Ethan crouched beside a pod, checking its energy readings. "All good here," he said, trying to keep his voice calm for the young Vorkai inside. "Stay calm, little ones. We're not going anywhere." The pod's light pulsed in response, almost as if acknowledging his words. For a brief moment, even amidst chaos, connection bridged species. Hours passed. The battle raged across the skies and plains of Vorka Prime. Each Draven ship destroyed was replaced by another, but the humans never wavered. They coordinated, communicated silently through gestures and comms, covering each other's weaknesses. At one point, a Dravon plasma strike hit a shield conduit, sending sparks flying across the floor. Human engineers leaped into action, risking burns and electrical shocks to repair it immediately. Even the Vorkai were awed at the humans' refusal to retreat. Elder Koresh whispered to Larina, "I have seen pride in our people, skill in battle, wisdom in thought, but I have never seen courage like this. They risk themselves for those who are not even their own." Larina's voice trembled. Perhaps this is why they are worthy of trust." As night fell over the planet, the Draven began one final assault, a concentrated strike aimed directly at the nursery. Mira issued her command with a quiet fury. "Ground teams, brace for impact! Fleet, intercept now!" The humans worked seamlessly. Drones swarmed, ships dove in precise arcs, and every weapon fired with unerring accuracy. The Draven ships, confident moments ago, now faltered under the coordinated defense. Ethan, Ramos, and their team reinforced the final shield segment, sweat running down their faces. Sparks flew and alarms blared, but they did not stop. Finally, the Draven fleet broke formation and began retreating. One by one, their ships fled into hyperspace, leaving the planet quiet once more. Silence returned to Vorka Prime. The nursery was intact. Every pod glowed steadily, unharmed. The humans stood among the debris, tired, dirty, and bruised, but victorious. Elder Koresh approached Captain Lorne, his voice quiet but filled with reverence. "You have done the impossible again. Your people. You do not falter even against overwhelming odds. Why?" Mira looked around at her crew, then back at the Elder. "Because these young lives matter. It doesn't matter who they are, where they come from, or what species they belong to. Every life is worth standing for. That is what being human means." Koresh's glowing eyes reflected her sincerity. "Then it is clear why we trust you. Not because of your weapons, not because of your ships, but because of your hearts." After the battle, the humans helped the Vorkai repair the damage. Broken shield nodes were replaced, infrastructure was rebuilt, and the young were tended to with even more care. The aliens watched, silent and humbled, as humans worked tirelessly, not for reward, not for recognition, but because it was the right thing to do. Mira walked through the nursery chambers, her eyes scanning the glowing pods. One by one, the young Vorkai seemed to respond to her presence, their light flickering in rhythm with her steps. She whispered softly, "You're safe now. We're not going anywhere." And for the first time, Elder Koresh saw it. The humans did not just protect. They connected. They cared. They bonded with the young in a way that transcended species, logic, and even the fear of death. As the twin moons rose over the horizon, the people of Vorka Prime, both human and Vorkai, understood something profound. Humanity was not simply a species of soldiers and explorers. They were guardians, unafraid, selfless, and devoted to protecting life wherever it existed. The legend of the Guardians of the Young was no longer a story whispered in hope. It was a reality, written in courage, sacrifice, and unwavering commitment, and far across the galaxy where the echoes of their deeds would travel, others would learn the truth. When life is threatened, call for the humans, because they will stand, because they will fight, because they will never ever leave the young unprotected. The sun rose over Vorka Prime, painting the horizon in shades of silver and gold. The air was calm, the battle long behind them, but the memory of human courage lingered like a warm light. Every Vorkai heart beat with gratitude and admiration, for they had witnessed something extraordinary. Captain Mira Lorne walked across the fields surrounding the nursery grounds, her boots crunching softly on the glimmering crystal sands. Around her, human soldiers, engineers, and scientists moved quietly, repairing minor damages, checking energy nodes, and comforting the young Vorkai in their glowing pods. There was no boast in their work, no prideful gesture. They simply did what was necessary. Elder Koresh watched from the top of a crystal tower. He had spent centuries observing countless species, but never had he seen a people like these humans. They were strong, yes, but it was not strength of arms that impressed him. It was their courage, their empathy, and their unwavering dedication to life. Koresh turned to Larina, a young Vorkai scientist who had grown close to the humans over the past weeks. "The humans," he said, his voice quiet, "are no ordinary species. They protect life because they choose to. That choice is a power unlike any we have known." Larina nodded, her eyes reflecting the gentle glow of the nursery. "It is as if they are connected to life itself," she whispered. Inside the nursery grounds, Dr. Ethan Cole spoke softly to a pod, its glow brightening as he approached. "Good morning, little one. Sleep well?" The larvae pulsed rhythmically as if acknowledging him. Around him, human caretakers moved carefully, talking to each pod in gentle tones. Even the Vorkai young had begun to respond differently to humans. They recognized them individually, their bioluminescent patterns adjusting in unique ways for each caretaker. Some pods pulsed faster when Captain Lorne entered. Others blinked slowly at Lieutenant Ramos. To the humans, this response was magical. To the Vorkai, it was astonishing. Koresh watched a pod brighten as Ethan leaned over it. "They trust them," he said softly. "Not because they must, but because they feel the humans care. It is remarkable." Mira overheard him and smiled faintly. "That's what humans do. We protect life, not for glory, not for reward, but because it is the right thing to do." Weeks passed and life on Vorka Prime slowly returned to normal. The damaged infrastructure was rebuilt, the storm's effects corrected, and the young Vorkai thrived. But the galaxy had already begun to take notice. Reports of the humans' heroism had spread through interstellar channels. News traveled fast. A small fleet of humans had protected the most sacred grounds of an ancient species, defending thousands of young from cosmic storms and a ruthless raider fleet. Entire systems whispered their names with respect and awe. Elder Koresh summoned the Vorkai High Council. The chamber, bathed in soft crystal light, was silent as he spoke. "We have long relied on shields, on technology, on strength. Yet in our hour of need, it was not our greatest weapons that saved our young. It was the humans. They risked their lives, not for gain, but for protection. We owe them more than words can express." One of the counselors, an elder with deep glowing patterns on her arms, asked quietly, "What should we do to honor them?" Koresh's eyes shone. "We will name them Guardians of the Young, a title no species has ever received. They have earned our trust, and they have earned a place in our history. A ceremony was held near the central nursery. Humans and Vorkai gathered together. The young, glowing softly in their pods, pulsed in rhythm with the energy of the event. Captain Lorne, flanked by her crew, stood before Elder Koresh and the council. "You have saved our children," Koresh said. "You have proven that courage and care can surpass even the greatest challenges. For this, we grant you a place in our hearts and in our records. You are our guardians." Mira stepped forward, her voice steady and humble. "We did not do this for honor. We did it because it was right. Every life deserves protection, no matter its form. That is what being human means. We are grateful for your trust, and we promise to always protect those who cannot protect themselves." The Vorkai stood in respectful silence, their luminescent bodies glowing in affirmation. They had learned a truth that many species struggled to accept. Humanity's greatest strength was not in technology, speed, or weapons. It was in the courage to stand for life, the compassion to care beyond oneself, and the choice to protect others at any cost. In the days that followed, humans helped train the Vorkai in defensive strategies that combined both species' technologies. Together they built more advanced shields, improved energy conduits, and even designed communication systems that allowed humans and Vorkai to coordinate in ways never seen before. But the humans also taught something the Vorkai had never known: empathy in action. They emphasized that no machine, shield, or weapon could truly save life without courage and care behind it. One afternoon, as Mira walked with Ethan and Ramos, they observed the young Vorkai outside their pods, learning to crawl, explore, and respond to the world. One of the young approached Mira, pulsing gently. She reached out, and for a brief moment she felt the connection, the trust that had been built over weeks of care, courage, and attention. "It's incredible," Ethan said softly. "They really do remember us. And not just as protectors, as friends," Mira nodded. "We're part of their story now. And so are we part of the galaxy's." Word of humanity's deeds spread beyond the Korra system. Other species, previously skeptical of humans, began to reconsider their judgments. Planetary councils, interstellar traders, and distant explorers started to whisper the same phrase: "If you want life protected, call for the humans." It was a phrase that carried weight, not because humans were the strongest, but because they had shown the universe the kind of courage and care that transcended fear, biology, and distance on Vorka Prime. Elder Koresh reflected on the events. "Our history has been written in crystal, logic, and long life," he said to Lorena. "But today a new story begins, one where humans are remembered not only for what they can build or fight, but for what they can protect. That is power beyond measure." Lorena nodded, watching a human soldier help a young Vorkai balance as it learned to walk. "It is beautiful," she whispered. As the human fleet prepared to leave Vorka Prime, Mira gathered her crew for one final moment with the Vorkai. "We came to protect your children," she said, "but we leave knowing something greater, that life, when cared for, can form bonds across the stars. You have trusted us, and we will honor that trust wherever we go." Elder Koresh stepped forward, placing a hand gently on her shoulder. "Captain Lorne, humans are no longer strangers to our hearts. You are part of our family, and the galaxy will remember why we trust you with the most precious lives we have." Mira smiled, looking at the glowing young around her. "Then we will continue to live up to that trust. Always." As the human ships lifted off, leaving the twin moons behind, the young Vorkai pulsed brightly, a living heartbeat of the bond formed between species. And far across the galaxy, transmissions began to spread stories of human courage. In storms that could destroy worlds, in battles where hope seemed lost, humans stand, they protect, they endure, they care, and that is why life trusts them. On distant planets, alien parents whispered the same words to their children. Merchants told travelers. Explorers carried the stories from system to system. Humanity had earned a reputation not through conquest or fear, but through selfless guardianship. Elder Koresh watched the ships disappear into hyperspace, his glowing patterns dimming in thoughtful reflection. "Perhaps," he murmured, "this is why the galaxy needed humans, not as warriors, not as rulers, but as protectors. The young of every world, safe in their care. That is why we trust them." And so humanity's legend grew, not just on Earth, not just on Vorka Prime, but across the stars. Wherever life was threatened, wherever hope seemed fragile, the universe knew one truth. If life must be protected, humans will be there. Because they are brave. Because they are selfless. Because they are human. And that is why the galaxy trusts them.